And welcome back. So what's Bill's role going to be here in Hillary's campaign and the White House, for that matter, if she wins? Well, that was parodied, among other things, on Saturday Night Live this weekend.
I am running because I want to be a voice for women everywhere.
Did someone say women everywhere? Hillary would make a great president.
Thank you.
And I would make an even greater first dude.
Thank you, Bill. That's nice.
Okay. Listen, there was certainly, you can argue that 8 years ago, he struggled with his role, Jeannie. South Carolina, you know, it all came out. Then 4 years ago in North Carolina, he arguably, if not saved, certainly helped out the president at that convention. But, you know, Dom said 2 Clintons for the price of 1. Is that a net asset? Forget all of his strategic abilities, which people say cannot be exaggerated. He's the best campaigner we've seen, I think, in this modern generation. But does he bring more baggage than he does value or not?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's like he is the most popular politician in America right now. I mean, if anybody is to say, oh, I wouldn't take him because he brings some baggage, forget that. That's insane. He is smart. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's fully supportive of her. So, you know, in 2008, he gets a lot of blame for what happens. I think it's well overblown. It's hard when you are in a relationship with somebody, you care about somebody, and they're being attacked. I mean, how can we not forgive him for saying something that people think is off color? I think it's insane. If I was running, I'd take him hands down. He's an amazing politician, and he supports her 1,000%.
Okay, Dominic, you're in the Hillary Clinton camp.
Okay.
And she gets the question, you know it's coming. If you're elected, what will the role of Bill Clinton be in your administration? Wow.
Well, I mean, honestly, any candidate is not going to tell you the truth. I mean,
Well, you got to still give an answer, Dominic.
right? You got to give an answer, but they're not going to tell you the truth. I would say she's probably going to say, "I will rely on my husband for his expertise."
But won't she?
Of course she will.
Yes, so it's true.
Of course it's true. If you don't think that Mr. Clinton is effective, go ask Al Gore.
Yeah.
Part of her being a front runner, is she can't be insecure about 150 things that make her the front runner. One of those things is Bill Clinton.
No doubt about it.
So she's got to run
But this
with
is
all
uncharted
her-
territory beyond the obvious reasons. To say, well, I've got the guy who had the job for 8 years, right? Who's in charge? You in charge? Are you getting counsel from your husband in terms of making the decision? It's not like we got a handbook for this thing.
I don't think anybody asked those questions with
Nobody,
Hillary Clinton.
because it's sexist.
Oh, they're gonna ask?
Richard,
Oh,
it's
come on.
sexist to
It's-
ask
I
a
agree
question
with
like
that.
that. No journalist is going to ask that
Of course
question.
they are.
What, who's
You
in
have a
charge?
spouse for the
Wait a
first
second,
time
Richard,
in
you're not
modern
gonna-
history. You're
you're
going to
not
have
gonna-
a
you're gonna
president
ask the
that's
question?
sitting there in the Lincoln bedroom with you. Like, what's the role going to be?
I'm lucky enough to have his advice and
Right,
counsel,
right,
but
right.
everybody's
You're not
clear
gonna
who's
follow
been
up.
elected
Right,
president.
Right. It's sexist to do
It's
anything
real
else as a
clear.
journalist.
They're going to ask the question. Who are you
She
kidding me?
hits that one
Fox
out of the
is going
park.
to do this
though. But she hits it
24/7.
out of the park. That's an easy one.
She'll get the nuclear code, so she's in charge. I mean, that's whoever gets the suitcase.
Who's got the football?
Right, who's got the football. Look, first of all, we're not going to see Bill Clinton until mid to late general election. There's no need to pull him out for the primaries. There's no need to.
If you
you're
can
not
control him.
And
Something
that's the
tells,
issue. You cannot control
something tells me
the
they've
president.
worked. Something tells me they've
They've
had this
worked this
conversation
out.
probably more than once.
Oh, I think
So-
there's going to be questions about donors to the Clinton Foundation. I think
Yeah.
you
Well,
underestimate.
look at Rand Paul this weekend on Meet the Press. He was already asking those questions.
If Rand's got to
bet
stay
you-
in the
I bet
interview.
you
He's already
Chelsea
walked
goes
out of a
for
couple
it.
already.
The
So
fact
yeah.
that some of the Republican field will be attacking the Clintons to keep themselves relevant.
Okay, so if you think that one's easy, I'll go to the harder one.
Thanks.
Barack Obama. Obviously, depending on who you ask, it was a marriage of convenience that he and Hillary shared for 6 years while she was at state. But nonetheless, their camps, there was still a lot of agita. There's still bad blood from '08. Certainly, if not between those two, between others, including the former president. How do they navigate this, and how much does she put her arms around his legacy, while at the same time, if she distances too much, you cause a fracture? How do they make that work? You got issues about Israel. You got issues about Iran. You've got, I can go up and down the line, Obamacare, immigration. What is she going to do she wants to be her own candidate, but Scott, she's also got to be careful she doesn't get the bad stuff too with it.
Rumor has it marriages that work are complex things, Richard. And theirs was a marriage that worked. And it wasn't easy for them to make it work, but they worked on making it work. And they're both pragmatic politicians
I think
who
I just
know.
have Dr. Phil just dropping some.
I'm trying to.
Yeah. He's good. You can tell why he's good. 'Cause I'm just
He's
like,
a
like,
therapist.
And the fact is they're both pragmatic elected officials who are going to make decisions that serve them well.
okay,
This
but will she want
partnership-
daylight from this president on her reign?
A little bit, but she's tethered to his foreign policy because she ran his foreign policy for 4 years. So there's not going to be much separation on Iran or on Israel or on other foreign issues. When it comes to Obamacare, by the way, she predates Mitt Romney with Romneycare. She was the first champion for healthcare reform, so she's going to support healthcare reform. She might put a spin on it or come up with a suggestion for it to make it her own or to craft it so that she speaks to the people who are somewhat disaffected by it. She will select other issues domestically where she finds some daylight from the White House. I wouldn't be surprised if they've had conversations about that and that they're fully
there
aware.
are
The Obama's
magic numbers
administration is
here,
fully
Jeannie,
aware.
though. If the president was at 58% approval rating, I mean, she's going to try and do a photo op with him every month. If he is and he's below 50, not terrible, but he's around 48%, which historically is where you normally are at the 6th year of your, watermark in terms of a 2-term presidency. It's kind of a toss-up. Just can't run away from him. But what if things go south a little? What if he's in the low 40s? What then?
Well, this is an issue for
Historically,
her.
that's not good for a
Yeah,
Democrat
no,
running
historically
for
that's not good. But if you look at her book, she did carve out areas in which she disagreed with the White House, she disagreed with the administration, and I think she's got to talk about those and put some distance between her and the White House on those issues. And on the other issues, she's got to own them. And, you know, she has tried to focus. I mean, Andrew was talking about some of the foreign policy issues, and I think that's going to be a real focus for her. But she's got to also, as we see in the rollout, try to focus on the issues that she thinks Americans care about. Let's face it, Americans are not voting on Libya. They're not voting on Benghazi. They're not voting on Syria. They're not even voting on ISIS, for God's sakes. They're voting on pocketbook issues, and that's why we see in the rollout, she's trying to focus on income inequality and those kinds of issues.
Okay, Dominic, you want to explain to me de Blasio here. Everybody, Cuomo threw a supporter behind Hillary. We can go down the list here. Bill de Blasio had a chance yesterday to say his former boss, whose campaign he worked on, that he was fully behind her and he threw his full endorsement, but instead he said the following. Take a listen.
You're technically not yet endorsing her.
No, not until I see, and I would say this about any candidate, till I see an actual vision of where they want to go. I think she's a tremendous public servant. I think she is one of the most qualified people to ever run for this office. And by the way, thoroughly vetted. We can say that. But we need to see the substance.
Isn't that chutzpah?
No, it's real simple. Remember, she's only been in the race for uno days.
Didn't stop Andrew Cuomo from endorsing
Okay, but remember, Bill de Blasio is Mr. Progressive. He's running to be the progressive president, if you will, #1 progressive. And so for him to throw his support behind her this early, it's not necessary. He'll be on board. There's no doubt about it. Trust me, Bill de Blasio wants to see Hillary Clinton go to the White House. It's just you save some endorsements. You roll things out. So it doesn't surprise me. I wouldn't read much into it. He's trying to please the progressives that the far left of the Democratic
a little
Party.
bit ungrateful to me, you know? Nobody would have heard of Bill de Blasio. He wouldn't be mayor today if she didn't give him a job.
But it's only the first day of the campaign.
We got 7 huge, massive endorsements on day one.
And he's sitting it out.
Arguably, you gave up 7 news cycles that you could have won.
You know who else didn't endorse her?
The de Blasio,
Barack Obama.
No, the de Blasio endorsement's going to mean more when it happens.
Yeah. And can I say, I think in a way he did her a favor. She needs some contention in the Democratic left because you cannot float to a general election in the United States, unscathed and then fight off the Republicans. You've got to have some kind of contention. I think he did her a little bit of a favor.
So to Janie's point.
Thank you, Scott.
Yes, it's true. I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thank you, Scott.
The 4 of you agreeing with each other to the point where I'm going to get sick. All right, let's see if we all agree on this next one. Well, after on the other side of the break, you got parents, unions, state officials who are telling kids to not go to school, specifically to skip the standardized tests that are starting this week. They don't like them, so they want kids to skip them. But Is that sending them the right or wrong message? We'll get into that after this.